I'm Rachel, and I'm going to show you how to cut your own hair with a Zylist. I have a long layered haircut, and I'm going to show you how to do 3 different things in this video. So the first thing I'll show you how to do is to cut your ends, just to refresh your ends or give yourself a little trim. The second thing I'll show you how to do is how to layer your hair or refresh your layers by pulling the top of your hair up above your head and cutting above your head. And then the third thing I'll show you how to do is to create a little shape around your face or cut bangs. In my case, I'm going to refresh my little short side bangs here. This is how I like to get set up for my haircut. I like to take a flat surface and cover it with a towel just so it's not too slippery. I have my Zylist. I like to have both a comb and a brush, my clips that come along with the Zylist, and the scissors as well. And I personally like to have a hand mirror in case I want to take a look at the back. In this case, I am going to have a little wastebasket here so that I can put the hair right in there and avoid dropping it on the ground. Okay, let's start. The first thing to do is to comb out any tangles. Make sure you get all the tangles out of your hair before you start. Then, take your comb or your brush and part your hair down the middle and continue the part all the way back down to your neck. And then pull each side over the front of your shoulder to the front. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first cut one side and then cut the other side right here in front of my shoulders. Something to consider before you start trimming your hair is whether you want your hair to be a little bit shorter in front or a little bit longer in front. So if you want your hair to be a little shorter in the front than the back, then you're going to cut your hair with your chin down. If you want it to be a little bit longer in front than it is in the back, then you're going to cut your hair in front with your chin up. And I generally like to keep the hair in front pretty long, so I like to cut my hair with my chin up. And you're going to want to keep your chin in a consistent place so that it looks the same on both sides. So we'll start with this side. I've got my Zylist. It's plugged in, and I've got all my hair on this side. I am just going to do a trim. My hair is getting a little bit longer than I like it to be. So I am going to go for cutting off maybe about an inch. So I'm going to hold it down to it's about an inch. And I very slowly push the button all the way down. Looks like I missed a couple strands, so I'm going to cut it again. You can see the hair just sticks right in the Zylist, so I can grab it out with my hands and stick it right in the garbage can. I don't want to leave it in there because it will make it harder for me to make the next cuts. Grab all the hair again. Make sure I get my chin in that same position. I take my Zylist down until the red line is aligned perfectly with the last cut and cut again. There we go. I'm just checking that I have everything here. Looks like I have a little bit of stragglers there. Now you can see how when I look up, the hair hangs a little bit differently. When I look down, I've still got this longer hair in front. And that's just because of where I held my chin during that cut. Let's move on to the other side. Grab my Zylist, put the hair in and bring it down. Now I'm going to want to make sure that I don't go shorter than this side to get in the position where I'm doing one side then the other. So I'm going to want to pull it down, pull this hair in tension, see where the ends are, and I'm going to want to make sure that I go a little bit longer on this side, just so I don't get in the position where I'm cutting a little bit off here, it's a little too short, then I'm cutting a little off here. So I'm going to go a little bit longer over here and then slowly cut off more. Make sure I put my chin position in the same position I did with the other side. And the way you can do that is you just look and are your ends perfectly aligned here? If they are, your chin's in the right position to cut again on the other side. Right. And looks like it's a little longer on this side, so I'm going to want to go a little bit more. All right, looks like it's even on both sides, so if I want, that can be all I can do, or I'm going to move on and refresh my layers. But if this is all you'd like to do, you can just leave it as is, or if it's a little blunt for you, you can take your scissors that came with your Zylist kit, and you can do a little point cutting, and that is cutting up into the ends to just thin them out a little bit and make them a little bit more natural looking than this blunt end. So point cutting is just cutting up into the hair, and do as many cuts like that as you like until you get the fringe natural looking if you like. So let me show you what this looks like in the back. When you cut your hair in the front, it creates a little bit of a V in the back. So hopefully you can see that V. I'm going to move on to layering, so I'm going to shift my camera angle up because you're going to need to see where my hands are when I pull my hair up above my head and I cut up here with the Zylist. So when we go into layering, we're going to want to treat the hair in front of your ear differently than the hair in back of your ear. So in front of your ear, your hair grows down to here, and in back, your hair grows down a lot lower. So if you pull this section in front of your ear up with your layers, there's some risk that you're going to destroy the perimeter that you just made. So you're going to make your hair a little bit too short. So I'm going to section out this part, and I'm going to cut this part later. And for the layering I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to cut the hair in the back of my head. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take sections of my hair here, and I'm going to hold it up and cut it straight up. And I'm also not going to cut this hair down here because this is the hair that creates the perimeter, and I'm just going to layer the top. I don't want to risk changing the shape of my perimeter. So I grab my Zylist. Again, it's going to be a little hard to show you how far up I'm going to go. The clear part forward. And I'm going to pull it all the way up. And I'm going to want to cut off about the same amount of hair as I did off my ends. So as you can see, maybe I'm going to cut a couple inches here. And so there we are. Just cut. Slowly and completely hold that button down. If you hear the motor stop, just let go of the button and press it again. Press it very slowly. So the more hair you have in the Zylist, the harder it is to cut. So you just want to be very gradually. You want to squeeze the button very gradually. And that gives it a chance to get through all that hair. So I just did my first little section of layering. And then I'm just going to move back on my head, and I'm going to cut everything to that same length. Finish cutting the layers on this side, and I'm going to move on to the other side. I'm going to grab a little bit of the hair I just cut on this side and put it in with the hair on the right. I can see right here the other side, the length of the other side, and there is where the end is. Okay. Right. All right, let me show you what it looks like after we just created those layers. All right, now I'm going to move on to the third part, which is softening the ends a little bit around my face and then freshening up my bangs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Zylist to angle the cut down a little bit this way. Trim it a little bit this way. And I got a little bit of a shorter fringe on the front. So on the other side I've got bangs. So I'm just going to do a little bit at the very bottom and then I'm going to reestablish these bangs. So now I've got a little bit of shortened edges here and here. And then I'm going to move on to bangs. So I'm going to separate out my bangs that are here. So I've got a little bit. I did a little bit of side bangs on my last haircut, and I want to keep those same bangs, but just trim them a little bit. So I'm going to use my clips. Clip this aside. So as you can imagine, you can, if you'd like, you can cut your bangs straight, or you can cut them at an angle. But one thing I recommend is never cut off as much as you think you want to cut off. Start with a little bit and then add, cut little by little until you've got them at the length you want. So here we're going to go. And I have side bangs, so I'm going to take this down and trim. Now I know I want to go shorter than that, but I'm just going to start with that. See how it looks? And I think I want it to be a little bit shorter, like to my cheekbone. So I'm done with my cut. I did a little freshen up to the ends. I re-established and refreshed the layers, and then I did a little trimming to these bangs and a little tapering around the face, and it feels nice and soft with the frayed ends cut off. Show you what the back looks like.